The Governor's Mansion, a Missouri heritage. Brought to you by the more than 15,000 Southwestern Bell employees in Missouri.
This is a stately structure, built of brick, crowned by a slate gray gabled roof, 100 years old, commanding more attention than a younger building might. In exchange, the house offers almost a century of history. Standing on an historic spot where Lewis and Clark camped on a Missouri River bluff in Cole County, this house belongs to the people of the state. But to hang your hat here, you must first toss that hat into the political arena. This is the Governor's Mansion, home of Missouri chief executive since 1872. In 1871, the legislature finally appropriated $50,000 for construction. On May 5th that year, the construction bid was accepted. By the end of the year, finishing touches were being put on the house. In the years that followed, the handcrafted bricks were covered by as many as 60 coats of paint. The task of removing paint that had built up during an 80-year period fell to the present First Lady of Missouri, Mrs. Warren Hearnes. In a moment, we'll go inside to learn more about this mansion on the Missouri. Hello, I'm Max Roby. With me here is Mrs. Warren Hearnes, our hostess on this visit to the Governor's Mansion. Mrs. Hearnes, we're certainly grateful for you welcoming us to your home.
Well, I'm delighted that you're here, Mr. Roby. It's an honor to show the house and a real privilege. It's a beautiful house, and we've made some changes in the last year. I'd like to tell you about them.
Why don't we start right here in this room?
All right. This room has seen some changes. It's had many uses through the years. It's been used as a study and even a cloakroom at one time. And I've made it a music room. This is the Steinway that we had rebuilt when we came into the house. We had a new harp put in it. And I needed a place to practice, so I moved it in here. The mirror above the fireplace is from the home of the first mayor of Jefferson City, Thomas Lawson Price. I moved it from the gold room in here.
I understand you made a rather startling discovery right here in this room.
I should say I did. Let me show you. When we came in the house, these were tucked away like this. And we never even dreamed there were shutters here. I had studied the design of Barnett and knew that he did design shutters for other houses. I had seen the Shaw House in St. Louis, but I never even suspected. I just thought we were cheated. And so, as we started to take the paint off, the painter called me and showed me a hinge that was recessed, and he didn't know exactly what it was. And I insisted that he take the casement apart, and here were the shutters tucked away. So we thought it was a real find and began to look in the casements in other parts of the house and found other shutters. Notice the hinge. We cleaned them here, and they are the carved brass hinges. And the window pulls on the window are the cast iron, and they're carved. It's a real addition to the house, we think. Let me show you the rest of the house. I don't know if you noticed the doors as you came in. These are the original doors that were put in the mansion. They weigh 2,000 pounds apiece, and notice how perfectly balanced they are.
They're certainly magnificent.
They're walnut doors, and they're hung with the original German silver.
Mrs. Hearnes, there are so many interesting things here in the Great Hall that it's hard to decide which to talk about next, but I would like to know something about this unusual fireplace.
Well, this is not an original fireplace, and it's the only one in the house that is not an original. The original fireplace was destroyed by fire in about 1906. There was a fire in the mansion which destroyed this fireplace and the sliding doors which led into the gold room. And Mrs. Spoke replaced the fireplace with a walnut and black marble. Notice the Great Seal of Missouri carved in the wood.
The wood carving there on so many other fine pieces here is extremely interesting.
Yes. There's a tradition here I want to tell you about. The portrait of the First Lady who lives in the house hangs at this spot in the mansion, as long as she occupies the house. And then these walnut parquet floors were put in the house by Governor Stark in 1937. In addition, we put a new floor in this room. We tried to put it like the original floor. This piano we moved from the nook into this room. It's a Chickering 1886. It's a beautiful piece of furniture. It needs a new harp so it will play, and hopefully we can do that sometime. And you see the piano lamp with a Bible table, which has been added to the mansion, is one we found. And you see this furniture. The room is called the Gold Room. It's because of the furniture which was given to the mansion from the Missouri Exposition of the 1904 World's Fair. You see the gold leaf furniture, the Louis XV French Provincial. And, of course, we cleaned these columns, and we took the caps all apart. They're all hand-carved. We cleaned about 60 coats of paint off and then replaced them as they were. And that's a pretty big job because these ceilings are about 20 feet high. We treat this as one room today. It was treated as two rooms when it was first built. You see the round wall, and of course this is one of the unique characteristics of the room itself, and as far as that goes, the whole house. We saw its beauty after we removed the mirror and decided to show it. I meant to mention the lights in this room, another bit of history. These are the original fixtures. They were gas lights. The chandeliers are matching chandeliers, and the wall brackets, of course, match the chandeliers. It's a tradition for each governor and his wife to leave a gift to the mansion, and these antique girandoles are the gifts from Governor and Mrs. Sparrow Smith. And as you know, Governor Smith was the governor in the early 50s. And then the beautiful gray marble fireplaces. There are 6 more like this one in the house. And when we came to the house, they were not in use and could not be used. Some had been bricked up, and it was pretty dirty work to unbrick them. And we relined some and then put the gas logs in them, and we've made warm fireplaces.
Mrs. Hearnes, do you ever tell visitors about the legend of the notorious Frank James surrendering in this house?
Well, I used to tell about that until one day I was corrected by a woman who was here on tour. She doubted that Frank James was ever in this house. So I went to the newspapers and studied, and after about 3 days' research, found that Frank James surrendered in Jefferson City, but over in the governor's office. And there's no reason to even imagine that he was here in this house. I sort of hate to quit telling that story, but since I know it's incorrect, we just don't tell it anymore on tour. It's really no pleasure to do away with the stories of the house, but there is a legend about a piece of furniture in the dining room that children love to hear. The star sideboard came to the old mansion during the term of Governor Edwards from 1840 to 1844. It's all handmade, made by a cabinet maker in Jefferson City. There's an interesting story that goes with this sideboard, and all the school children who come to the mansion enjoy hearing about it. Governor Stewart was governor of Missouri and lived in the old mansion. And there are some interesting stories told about Governor Stewart, but one is that he rode his horse in the mansion and fed him from this sideboard. And the nicks along here were filled. They're said to have been caused by the standing halter nicking the sideboard. There's a duplicate of this sideboard in President Jackson's home, the Hermitage. This is the official setting for the dining room, and this is the official china and silver. All the furniture in this room is handmade. We've been using the chairs and tables since the turn of the century. The silver was started for the mansion in the 1920s and has been added to. Some of it has the monogram on it. We have the official china, which came to the mansion during the Dalton administration. It has the Great Seal of Missouri on it, and we have place settings for 75. We can seat 18 to 20 people at this table, And if we have bigger groups than that, we move in smaller round tables. And we discovered something interesting when we were uncovering the shutters in the dining room. We found that these were actually doors. Beyond these doors, we glassed in the porch, which enables us to seat up to 110 for dinner.
The chandeliers in here presented quite a problem, didn't they?
Oh, yes. When we came here, we thought they were a dark bronze. And we tried to clean them once or twice and didn't have any luck. One of my friends was here in the winter, and he said, well, they're brass. All you need to do is clean them. So we took them down, took them all apart, polished them, and then sprayed them with a preservative, and found that we had bright brass fixtures. And the wall brackets were also brass, and we thought they were bronze. They were gas fixtures at one time and had been electrified. The sideboard is new to the house. It was given to the mansion by the James family estate. It's all handmade, was made in 1866 for William James, and it was given to his wife. The silver service was given to the mansion by Governor Phil Donnelly, and the coffee urn was given to the mansion by Governor Dockery in the early 1900s and was an antique even then. Another interesting piece of furniture is the petticoat table, which was used by the girls to see if their petticoats were showing when their skirts were ankle length. Another piece of furniture from this era is the china cabinet, which was brought to the house by Mrs. Folk in 1904. It has some of the valuable and beautiful pieces that were in the mansion. You see the rose bowl.
What is the beautiful cut glass piece in the center?
That's an ice cream platter, and we have a few of the cut glass pieces from that set. There's the goblet, and then the china plate, the Dresden china plate. I just put these here because they are valuable and they're interesting pieces. And another interesting piece is the clock. It was a gift to the mansion from Governor and Mrs. Lon Stevens in 1898. And one of the cozy corners of the mansion is this nook. It was done by Mrs. Francis, who decided she'd like to have a cozy place to sit in the afternoon and read, and so she cut the windows and moved the furniture. I guess her favorite piece is in here.
Mrs. Hearnes, I know that there are many fine old pieces of furniture here, but is there any particular one you'd consider a prize antique?
Yes. This couch is the oldest piece of furniture in the mansion. It dates back before 1840, has the pineapple legs, and the green couch came to the house about 1911 and it used to be in the Secretary of State's office. The pictures on the wall are the pictures of the first ladies. The collection was done by Mrs. Phil Donnelly. And then one of the things we're really proud of is the new library, which was started by the Missouri Library Association and the Academy of Squires. It has the mansion crest, and it has the seal on the crest. And we hope that through the years, the books will be added.
Well, these pieces here and elsewhere on this first floor of the mansion are certainly beautiful, unique, and most interesting.
Yes, I love the beauty and the dignity of the downstairs, but we do most of our living upstairs. This stairway is an interesting feature of the house. It's all hand-carved. It was made by a man brought over from Bavaria to make this stairway for the house. It stood from 1871 till 1937 without braces, and then Governor Stark put in the supports underneath the stairway that you see.
It's so graceful, I just wonder if some people haven't been tempted to do a little sliding.
Well, I imagine every child who passes this stairway would want to slide down. It's a beautiful stairway. And this portrait is interesting. It was paid for by the women of Missouri, and the portrait is of Mrs. Stevens, who started the custom of leaving the portrait in the house. This house has seen many happy times, and this stairway has seen some beautiful scenes. One was a wedding of Governor Park's daughter, and we're looking forward to a wedding this summer. You know, our daughter's going to be married in the Gold Room, and we'll go down this stairway. Even the private family quarters have stories and histories attached to them.
What's the story about this particular room?
This room is called the Prince of Wales room. It gets its name from the bed. The canopy bed was in use in St. Louis in the old Barnum Hotel when the Prince of Wales, who later became King Edward VII, came to St. Louis for a visit. And the story goes that he slept in this bed in the old Barnum Hotel. And so during the administration of Governor Sterling Price, he acquired the bed for the mansion. That was 1853 to 1857. And it's been in use ever since in the old mansion and in this governor's mansion. The wood carvings are the gifts of Governor John Sappington Marmaduke. He had ordered them before his death. He's the only governor who died while in office living in this mansion. And then the family presented them to the mansion in his memory. Now the next room is a guest room. Let me show you that room. In here, the furniture was given by the Arrow Rock Association. The furniture is walnut with black enamel. The bed and the dresser match. The washstand is walnut with white marble. We had an interesting surprise in here when we took the paint off the shutters. We found that they were not window shutters, they were door shutters. And so that made us think that this was an exit at one time for the shoe-fly porch. One of the interesting features in here is this door, this beautiful walnut door, and incidentally the doors were restored by Governor Jim Blair. This is a 15-foot door, and it is the biggest door on the second floor. The casements around the door we had hoped would be walnut, and then we found that they were hard pine. You can imagine how many hours it took to put the casements in like they were and carve the wood. This door goes into Julie B's room. She really lives in this room. There's an interesting feature in here. Maybe you wonder why the shutters have been tucked away and hadn't been found. And this is where I can show you. Notice the casement here. The shutters are nailed away. They've had putty in the cracks. They have about 60 coats of paint on them, and so it would be easy to forget about them. And down through the years, we don't even know when the shutters were nailed away to start out with, and so it's an easy thing for people to forget that there were once shutters in the house. And this room and one more place are the only places in the house that we have not opened the shutters. But this does explain it. This is called the Crittenden room because of the furniture in the room. The hand-carved bed and the nightstand and the dresser are all matching pieces which were given to the mansion in memory of Carolyn Crittenden by the Crittenden family. Governor and Mrs. Crittenden lived in this house and used this furniture in the house. This is really a combination of old and new in here. Julie B. uses this room as any other child would. She has a croquet set, pennants for the Missouri Tigers, the St. Louis Cardinals, and the Kansas City Chiefs, and her football and basketball, and her collection of horses, and her aquarium. So she makes use of all the space, and still we manage the history of the house. Now, if you'll go out in the Great Hall, we'll sit down and I'll tell you some more.
Mrs. Hearnes, this is a rather comfortable-looking area of the house. How is it used?
Well, this is our upstairs sitting room, and we really live here. Julie B. practices, the girls study, we read the newspapers. And you'd be surprised how many decisions are made here. Sometimes I let myself wonder how many men have been in the house for conferences and how many decisions were made affecting the lives of Missouri citizens.
I noticed a very distinctive feature about this area, the engravings. Could you tell us something about those?
Oh, yes. The 3 engravings on the wall are Bingham's. They were done by Sartain and Gautier. One is signed by Bingham, and of course is very valuable. They're all very valuable, but that makes it even more so. We have stump speaking and county election and martial law.
You do a little of that stump speaking yourself, don't you?
That's the one I really like, too, because you see the different faces, and the faces are the same as you go through the state. The man on the stump trying to get the people to listen, and some listen and some don't. And of course, it's my very favorite one.
We know all the things we've seen here represent a great deal of time and effort. Tell us about your part in the restoration.
Well,
what you did.
Everybody who gets into restoration knows it's a lot of work. We took the paint off the woodwork, as I've shown you, and took the paint off the brick. I was interested in the brick outside because when we came to the house, it was in need of a new coat of paint. And we wanted to see what kind of brick was underneath the white paint. And were really surprised and pleased to find that it was pink brick. It's all handmade. And when we got the paint off, we were going to leave it anyway. We just kind of waited to see how it would look. It was done with a new preparation. You spray an acid on the paint and then you take it off with water. And it takes much water under a high-powered hose. In the afternoon, we had some little problems. We had to dig some trenches and get the water off the shrubbery because it was important that we not lose the shrubbery. It couldn't be replaced. And so we weathered that storm. And then coming in the house, anybody knows if you've lived in a house where they've been sandblasting with a fine sand that you dust for many, many days. So it represents a lot of hard work, and you have to like what you're doing and know what you're looking for, I guess.
Well, with all of that, there can't be any doubt that you must have some very strong personal feelings about this house.
Yes, I do. I hope that somehow we can find a way that the shutters won't be nailed again into the casements, and the woodwork won't be painted again, and the things of historical significance can be preserved. And let me say this to you. The women who've lived in this house have done their best too, I think. I don't criticize any who've lived here, but I think that families come and go. The house belongs to the state.
Well, that brings up another point, Mrs. Hearnes. Speaking of coming and going, until this administration, why a governor could not succeed himself. So they only had a relatively short time here. You've had 6 years so far.
Well, and I think that has to be a help to me in finding the things here, because it takes a while to get used to a house, and you have to learn how you're going to live in a house, and then you make some discoveries, and I think that's why I've been able to find the shutters, because I've been here longer over an extended period of time.
What would you like to accomplish during your remaining years in this mansion?
Well, I told you in Julie's room that there were 2 shutters that hadn't been opened, and hopefully we'll get to open those. I would like to see if we can figure out a way to preserve this without intruding upon the privacy of the people who live in this house. And I didn't mention to you, and I meant to, the portraits of the First Ladies always need care. This summer, Sidney Larson from Columbia Christian College redid the paintings and cleaned them, and particularly the Binghams, cleaned the Binghams and restretched them. And those things need to be taken care of. There are no funds exactly for that, and some of those things are the things that will interest me in the next couple of years, I think.
And I expect that a part of you will always be here.
Yes, yes. Part of my energy will be left here, too.
Energy well spent, Mrs. Hearnes. I'm sure we'd all agree you've been a most gracious hostess, and we certainly appreciate seeing your home, this governor's mansion.
We have seen the beauty and history. We have explored the tradition of this, the Missouri Governor's Mansion. Mrs. Hearnes has expressed the hope that steps can be taken to ensure that this house may continue to serve as the state's official residence, unchanged in its present architectural form, displaying Missouri's fine heritage, and that it always may be a home for future governors and their families, a home of which all Missouri can be proud.
The Governor's Mansion, a Missouri heritage. has been brought to you by the more than 15,000 Southwestern Bell employees in Missouri.